That numbskull, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim. We have today AJ Hayes. This is the Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. This episode is Season 1, Episode 9, I believe. And we have a title called Donald's Fault. I just want to remind you before we go any further, like and subscribe, share this with your friends, let them know. The only way we're going to get common sense spread around is if we talk about it and tell our friends about this show. Also, up there in the right-hand corner of your screen, you should be seeing something that says Day 67. That's Day 67 that the Afghan hostage crisis has been going on. We know that we have Americans and Afghani, special visa holders who are behind enemy lines, and there is nothing that's being done on the State Department level to get those people out. So without further ado, let's hear how it's Donald's fault from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. A.J. Hayes, the commentator of Common Sense.
I don't know about a legend. I'm no legend. I just tried to be the conduit of common sense. But anyway,
okay.
Yeah, yes. So thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Folks, like Jim had said tonight, Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. Our topics tonight, Donald's fault, big question mark. And we also may have found, if you watched last week's episode, the one thing. We may have found it, and we're going to get into that tonight. We got a whole lot of things to go over with you guys tonight. A lot of activity going on, as I'm sure you're aware, and it does make it tough. Again, we're not a scripted show. We try to continue with the whole purpose of the show is to remove the smoke and mirrors, lift up the tarp, and show you things that are going on right there in plain sight, right in front of your face, under your eyes, for you to make that decision to decide what's going on, who's lying in your country, who do you trust, which way you should go, which way you should vote, and kind of sort out all the mess. So that's the purpose, and it's always been our objective here at the show. So I want to start off with just a recap from last week's show. And if you remember, we talked about, and we broke it down for you, Biden's mess. And I think that's kind of an understatement. But, quick recap, his mess with the border, disaster, drugs, economy, supply chain, which we did forget to mention last week, Jim. The supply chain was on his list of achievements or lack thereof. Foreign policy and, lack of law and order, on and on and on and on. We're not going to go through the whole list of his achievements in 9 months. But what we know is this all began 9 months ago as this journey, would you say, endeavor, the Biden saga began 9 months ago. Saga, that's what we'll go with, okay? 9 months ago, the Biden saga began, and most people with a little bit of common sense had, for those who were ding-dong, Trump is gone, celebrating and all that kind of stuff, there was people out there who had their doubts. Maybe they didn't like Trump, anything but Trump. But there was that, I would call it very early on, the anticipated headache. It started as an anticipated headache. And then as we follow the timeline, right around 3 months into it, it started to show, trying to keep it within one word, pathetic, this administration and this leader. And then as we started to approach the 6 month point, and remember, there's a lot of things going on in here. We're going to stop this, do this, do this. We hit 6 months, and it frankly just became embarrassing. And if you recall, when we hit the 8th month, it was horrific, which is right around the time, we just packed our bags and left Afghanistan, and our troops were killed unnecessarily, and as Jim started to show with the countdown, people were left behind. And now I was trying to find the right word for it. So again, it was anticipated headache we started off with from day one. 3 months pathetic, 6 months embarrassing, 8 months horrific. Where are we at now? I couldn't come up with anything else other than a full-blown nightmare. And, with that, with all this anarchy and chaos and madness going on, I have to say, where are, however you want to say it, is the Republican leadership pushing back?
Asleep.
Where are these Republican leaders?
Oh, you there, AJ? There you go. You lost you there for a second.
And
where are the Republican leaders? Where I lost you there for a second.
Okay, we'll take it back. Technology. We're going to touch on that too, by the way, tonight. So where are our Republican leaders with this mess? Making appearances on conservative news stations and stuff like that, sticking their little head up, taking photo shoots at the border. All right, that's played out. That's not getting any action. There's nothing being done about it. Where's Mitch? Where's McCarthy? Where's Cruz? Where's Rubio? The list goes on and on. Look, they're good leaders, and they've shown to have way more accomplishments than the man that sleeps in the White House. But that being said, these little interviews they're doing and these little teasers that they're putting out there, for the conservative base to see, are not getting anything done. It's just not acceptable. People want action now. They want results. They want to see some emotion. You hear a lot of people talk about this investigation going on, that investigation, and it seems like a whole lot of nothing. It kind of fizzles out. We all know the Don, if you want to call him, or the big man, and the whole Hunters thing, and the billions going here and billions going there. And it is a two separate system here where some people are now above the law and people want action, and it's our representatives that need to push back and get some results. I mean, can't use the excuse, oh, well, we don't have the votes to pass legislation. Oh, we don't have this, or we don't. No excuses. Don't do your little performance on the airways and on a conservative news channel. Get out there on the floor of Congress, and there should be, like we said last week, spit flying out of your mouth. Let me tell you something. We talked about this before. Biden, probably in the history of politics, he's made history a lot, in more ways than one, but he has provided probably the biggest campaign ads for that the Republican Party has ever had for them, and it didn't cost them a dime. Billions and billions of dollars worth of campaign ads. It seems like Joe Biden kind of did it organically. In fact, he's done so many campaign ads with his policies that are failed, flawed, disastrous, that he might even, Jim, maybe he'll try to write that off as a donation. I don't know, but it's like it's a laugh of disgust. But we got to demand, and I think people need to start asking, where are the Republican representatives pushing back against? This is getting out of hand now. Yes, they let him talk, they let him have his way to show people how bad he really is. But this is really, like we said, is a nightmare now. It's dangerous.
AJ, where's the outrage? There's, I hear a lot of conservative commentators with outrage. I do not see or hear too many Republicans. There's, hundreds of them in Congress. There's hundreds of them in state houses around the country. There's thousands of them in state houses around the country. And yet, where is the outrage against what is going on in Washington with this guy's horrible, disastrous policies, your nightmarish policies that you're talking about? I agree with you 100%.
Well, let me try to break this down. First, to keep it simple, is the Republicans need to just somehow learn how to be proactive instead of reactive. And right now, I don't see either of the two. They're not being proactive, and in some aspects they're reactive, but they're, like I said, they're doing it on talk shows and interviews. They really need to do this, take their moment on the floor of Congress and just let it out and really show the people that you're there to carry out their wishes. And as we say here, we emphasize common sense that this has gotten out of control. I get it. Let him self-implode. They knew, we talked about how we anticipated the headache. It was anybody with a little common sense, even if you couldn't stand Donald Trump, knew that this was not going to be good. Guy running a campaign, hiding in the basement the whole time. The whole thing had stink written all over it. So there's no surprise to the outcome. So they let it fester. But again, it got to the point with Afghanistan where our soldiers lost their lives, and the carnage continues in the inner cities with no law and order. And it's really at a point now, enough's enough. The point has been made, and it's time to take a stance and start being extremely proactive and getting out there and pushing back. Because, look, they got this $5 trillion or $3.5 trillion bill that's on the floor, and you actually have two Democrats pushing back harder than conservatives that are doing it. Joe Manchin is it was for another show, but now we're into it. I'm going to bring this up. Bernie got screwed twice kind of by his own people. He was kicking Hillary's ass, and then somehow some kind of deal, and he kind of, if you recall, conceded. Right. And that didn't work out too good. So now, you fast forward to the last election in the primary, and Bernie was way up there. I would almost go as far as to say I think he might have been the favorite and probably could have took it all the way to the general. And I got a question: was there maybe some kind of deal made with him and Biden?
Totally was.
Look, I've been in politics, meaning Biden for 60 years, Jim? How many years is it now?
It's forever.
Forever. All right. Well,
since 72.
All right. So let's just round it off. 50 years he's been in politics, and we're going to hit on something with that too. And, so maybe they make this deal where, okay, I get in, don't worry, Bernie, I'll carry out, we'll give the whole country free shit, and everything's going to work out. I guess the question is, because these politicians are ugly. A lot of them are dirty and sneaky and slimy, and deals are it's like Monty Hall 2.0. Let's make a deal. And maybe that promise was made. Bernie, look, you just go away, get up there in Vermont. I get in and I'll carry out. And he's so far, Biden's been kind of like Bernie 2.0 with this socialist agenda and carrying out these things. But was it anticipated that Manchin would turn around and push back the way he did? There's a lot of different things in play. Is Manchin, he'll get crushed in his home state if he tries this social stuff. The voters have already shown that they don't want that. So is it for, did it turn out first and foremost for his political future there? Or maybe is it to lay the seeds and plant the seeds, that for a presidential run down the road to say, hey, look, I have proven, I've held my ground, that I am an up the middle type of candidate, where obviously we know the president, he said he was in the beginning, or his handlers told him to say he was. And, but maybe he's doing that. But in the end, that's why Bernie's losing his mind, and actually did an op-ed in Virginia in Manchin's territory about how bad Joe Manchin is. And apparently they were going to go meet today at the White House. Didn't mean to get off track here, but it's something that you need to think about. Was there a deal made between Biden and Bernie? Bernie, you step out of the way because I want to be president. I've been schnoozing to people long enough. I want to go out on a high note at the highest office in the land. And, did Biden know that Manchin would stop it? You always got to have, three eyes open when you're dealing with these people, all of them. Now, what I want to talk about, like you said, Jim, is like the Republicans and why aren't they pushing back and all that. Look, the Democrats, simplifying it, they've had their playbook, and it's been used for years and years and years and worked for them very well. And they've had three main components of their playbook, depending on the political climate: abortion, Second Amendment, and race. And then if you Flip it around, depending on the climate, what's going on, what's the hot topic of the day, it's race, abortion, Second Amendment. Well, race, obviously, they've been playing that a lot, and getting the country to go against each other in a lot of different ways. That card was really working for them, and that part of their playbook. But just like anything else in life, eventually it's going to fizzle out. Right. Johnny Carson had a hell of a run, and then eventually, the Tonight Show's never what it really was when Johnny Carson was around. And I think you see what I'm saying here. So that goes to the topic of tonight's show, or one of them. It looks like they added a few new weapons to their arsenal, or what we say, propaganda points to their arsenal. Right. And those two would be, obviously, COVID. Anything time we need to make a diversion, it's COVID. Now we got to do this, it's COVID. And whatever benefit it's going to do to sway voters, it's COVID. And while we're on the topic of, we'll get into that in a second. And then the other one, it's Trump's fault. The cargo ships, 1 million cargo ships sitting out there, it's Trump's fault. All these people coming over the border, it's Trump's fault / AKA the prior administration. So, if you look at their playbook, and we'll recap it, it's abortion. We really haven't had a whole lot of talk about abortion. I still ask that question time and time again on the show. How you could be a Democrat, pro-choice person and a Roman Catholic and practice Catholicism and go to communion is still beyond me. And how Nancy got an invite to go visit the Pope. I mean, it's just starting to expose a lot of hypocrisy here. But I know that's been going on for years and years, but it's something that it's that common sense thing right in plain sight to make you think somebody's full of shit. But Getting back to what we were saying is, they added to their arsenal 2 more topics, and it's COVID, and people are starting to get a little fed up with that. And then obviously it's Trump's fault, which brings us to one of the topics of the show. And Trump has been out of office now for 9 going on 10 months. Like, you need to be a leader, dude. You need to be, your administration. If you had all these years to practice, I mean, it's not like you got all rookies in there. You just transplanted Obama's cabinet and put them in there. We still question. Actually, there was a show on Saturday night, Judge Janine. I've heard a lot of talk show, opinion shows tinker around the cognitive decline, I think one uses, of the president. They beat around the bush, and Judge Janine, she went there and just basically said he has no clue what he's doing. He lost his wits, and in her opinion, Barack Obama is the man behind the curtain. We don't get any props for Fox News or any of those, TV shows or nothing like that. But it was kind of like, wow, she went there. And really didn't hold back anything, which a lot of people have been wondering who's behind the curtain controlling this puppet. But, that said, the Republicans need to start getting their playbook together, get proactive. They know, the Democrats, it's very repetitive, and now they added to COVID, they added the Trump's fault thing. They really need to start getting their act together and get on the floor of Congress and start, even if they just propose bills or propose legislation, they might find some Democrats where people are really pissed off right now, and the partisan thing's starting to go out the window real quick. Where some of these real true moderate Democrats, there's probably a lot of mansions out there that might be forced to, if they want to salvage their political career, might have to throw a vote that way. But why aren't we trying? I don't know. But that kind of blends into the second part of tonight's show or topic, where we asked last week, can you find just one thing? Can you name, and we left it open for everybody, and it's still open, just one thing that this president and his administration has nailed, mastered, or done right since being in office. And I don't think we've gotten anything yet, Jim. And I know there's a lot of different shows like ours that ask kind of the similar question or exactly the same question and kind of surfed around, didn't really see anything, but I think I might have found something.
What's that? Oh boy, here it comes. Oh, I lost you there.
I found one for me that he has mastered something.
What's that?
And in plain sight, too. He has mastered whenever he needs to go and do a campaign spiel and politic for a candidate or himself or drop a diversion, he's spot on. He doesn't gaffe. He doesn't stumble his words. Whenever it comes to political gibberish, it seems like he's spot on. I mean, granted, he had 50 years to practice bullshit, so that might be one of the few things that'll remain around up there before he forgets that.
Right.
But I think I found the one thing. Now, if you go outside of anything that has to do with politicking or bullshitting, forget it. Zonk. Anything that has to do with the issues going on in 2021, that's where the gas and the babbling and gets lost in the shuffle. So take a look at it. But I kind of noticed that. It's like, wow, he's speaking very clearly. But it was Biden 1972. It was Biden 1984. It's just, I guess if you repeat something over and over and over again for 50, 60 years, it may be one of those things still lingering around next to the little bird between the ears. I don't know. But I just, there's just something going on here. and I just can't, if there's something else. No, but if there's just one thing that he's doing right, maybe that was the only thing. I don't know. Folks, feel free to chime in and, let us know. Let us know what you find.
Maybe we should ask Facebook if they think of, that's a fact checkers, Maybe we should ask the fact checkers. What do you think?
Well, and that gets to the next part of what we wanted to talk about is how the social media sites and these apps and different types of platforms and stuff, how much did they really impact the election? And again, folks, I say this every time we bring up the last election. Not going to get into fudge votes, fudge ballots, or anything like that, but we touched on this a few episodes ago on how social media and these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, started doing little things. And in one case, like it baffles me that if you mention the word, let's say, Jim, we're streaming on Facebook right now. Masks. Masks don't do anything to protect you from COVID. It's a ruse.
Oh, there it is. I think I lost you.
So we get a flag for false information and all that. But is it consistent? So let's test it. Okay, we're going to get a little test. Let's try that again. Masks don't protect you from COVID. Okay.
Look at that.
See what we get. All right. Let's give it something different. I got it. Joe Biden is the best president of all time.
Oh, my God. I call a red flag on that one.
But did it come up automatically?
It did.
Let's try it again.
Okay.
Wait. Masks don't protect from COVID. And it flags you. Okay. Joe Biden's foreign policy is the best of all time. I don't think it works. You see, try it. You guys go on your Facebook pages and try it. Tell something, see if it flags it, and then tell another lie and see if it flags it. So it seems like there might be some bias when those little windows pop up as to what's the truth and what's not the truth. Something's going on here, which, makes one wonder. We touched on this months back or episodes back about how social media could have interfered. We won't say interfered, but could have swayed or overly accommodated certain things in the election. And we got to give props to Mark Levin, because he took that, not that he took it from us, we're just little guys, but he really broke it all down. And there's something that you should be aware of. And he did a really great thing. Again, we don't get any plugs for any personalities, but we will find their content. And sometimes we see content that we do, and later on, it's up there. And we kind of do pat ourselves on the back a little bit, saying, there's two of us doing this show. and we're kind of ahead of things a little bit sometimes. But there was 400.
Definitely got internet issues. We're losing you there for a little bit. I lost you there for a little bit. What'd you say? 400?
That's in that name when they cut us off. There was approximately, it's alleged that there was $419 million invested by Zuckerberg in the last election. And, one of the big investments was in a company, and we're going to break this down for you like we normally do, called the Center for Technology and Civic Life. Now, it was called the Center for Technology and Civic Life. Now, I find, not in all cases, but when you're going to do something that might not smell or pass the smell test, you add words in there like civic life. Kind of sounds like totally innocent. It's kind of like a cool thing. But is it a clandestine little thing that's not so innocent? And then there was another one. It was Center for Election Innovation and Research. So the first one, the Center for Technology and Civic Life, CTCL, and then Center for Election Innovation and Research, the CEIR. Now, when you dig deep into those things, it appears that 419 million trickled down in different tentacles and found its way in a lot of your local voting. And it was sometimes they'll use this cool word called a co-op, but basically what it was is a land where the private sector money and these two groups that I described for you here were like the saving grace and going to do a good deed and blend it with municipality, actually, county and state election procedure as, hey, we're going to help you out. We're going to make it easier. The problem was it seemed that this leaned to a particular party. And we always welcome you to go vet this and look at it yourself. And it was very clandestine the way it was done. There is, if you got to donate to a candidate, Jim, I believe it's $2,300 or $2,500 is the max you can donate to a candidate.
Yep.
Think about this, folks. So if you really like, let's say the governor running in Jersey or somebody else, and you got a couple extra, bucks, you could go up to $2,300, which we know in today's world isn't a lot of money. You could maybe have wrote your stimulus check and signed it over to your favorite candidate. But if you start playing around with these PACs and super PACs, you're talking millions. It's a real hypocrisy the way it works. And one of the other ways it works, and we could spend probably 50 hours and only just break the seal on this, when you see websites and such, they're very deceiving. And I'm going to say this, not all of them, by no means not all of them. A lot of them, in fact, the majority are legitimate websites for a great cause. But when you start seeing blah, 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 blah.org, you better check it out and make sure, indeed, it's legitimate. Sometimes people affiliate that .org with, it's an official state site or an official government site. Again, right. Not that it's all bad, but they love to infiltrate that stuff. And the 501c3s. There's a lot of very good nonprofit organizations out there. More good than bad. Mm-hmm. But it could be very deceiving that you think you're donating to a good cause. And this doesn't just apply to politics. It's anything, really. Know what you're getting involved in. But not to get off topic here, but what we're doing, what does this all have to do with? We're talking about the Republicans should be pushing back, and this country's in bad shape right now, and they need to be proactive and really get their their platform together and get moving on this. Where the left, we talked about their playbook and the different topics, and they added the 2 topics to it, the COVID and the blame Trump, And in addition to that, they have all these little cells. I mean, I just heard something recently where, and full disclosure, don't knock your local baseball league or your local softball league or soccer or anything like that. But some of these political operatives have found their way into the boards of directors of some youth sports and other organizations where they get some very, very valuable information. You don't think nothing of it. Hey, I'm signing little Joey or Susie up for softball, name, address, email, phone number, blah, 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 blah. No, they're not going to ask you for your party affiliation. They're not going to do that. But do you know how valuable that data is? Do you know what that cost to get that data to be able to send robo-text and things like that? And I know there's legislation being put out in certain states where the school curriculum trying to mandate that you go on a website, if your parent wants to see it, you click it, and boom, there it is. And if you fudge it, you're in a lot of trouble as a school district, to keep it simple. And their pushback from the unions, that's for next week's show, but the unions push back and say, well, it's too difficult. Well, I think a piece of legislation needs to be done at the federal that there is certain laws that apply, but they always find a gray area. Piece of legislation needs to be done that anytime someone signs up for, whether it's Little League, whether it's at the Pilates Club, or anything like that, that there is major penalties for disseminating that person's private information, including if you sit on the board and know they can't have it on the disclosure on page 544, small spot. No, it needs to be big, bold, and that information should not be able to be available. If someone wants to give their information, then they go to a candidate site or a political party site and they sign up. But you see here, we're behind, but they're taking advantage of these gray areas. And it doesn't seem like the Republicans, I mean, maybe they're trying to be classy, or I doubt it, but.
AJ, I would say.
They got to catch up.
I would say this, AJ. You can't rely on, in a campaign, and you've seen this, I'm sure, over the decades. If you're the opposing political party, you can't depend on them giving you the election. You have to develop your own message. You got to develop your own campaign. You have to develop your own. What are you going to do if you get elected? We're not really hearing that. What we're hearing is the opposite. We're just we're the anti-Biden campaign. That's really what they're pushing, and that works for a little bit. But if you don't do the hard work wins, as Larry Elder's father would say, hard work wins. And if you're not putting in the hard work for the campaign, like these Republicans sitting in Congress are not doing, it's going to leave us flat-footed when we have an opportunity. Let's make it count. Because a year from now, they're going to forget. People in America are going to forget.
A year? It's probably weeks, days. They forget.
Right.
They exactly. Forget, and that's and it's look. We showed that the Democrats put COVID into their playbook, their political playbook, and the timing of it. People were all bunkered down. We were all stuck in our homes, wrapped in plastic wrap and duct tape, and can't breathe, can't do anything. And when they broke the seal and finally let you get a breath of fresh air and go buy a ham sandwich at the corner store, you think people were really paying attention on politics? And that's where a lot of dirty deeds were being done, right there. I mean, some of these, I mean, getting back to the, like we said, when the Democrats added to their arsenal of, the typical Democrat playbook with, again, the abortion, Second Amendment, race, and then they added COVID, and then it's Trump's fault. I mean, Biden is he takes advantage of it all the time. Just recently at a law enforcement memorial, he blames just carte blanche, blames President Trump for the January 6th debacle.
Mm-hmm.
He blames it for that. So in all fairness, that was, according to him, that was Trump's followers. That was Trump's people. Well, I think where is a Republican senator or a Republican congressperson or somebody of high level turning around and saying, well, if you want to say that, well, then you, as the head, Joe Biden, as the head and the face of the Democrat Party, your loyal followers burn down the country for 9 months and continue to destroy the country, and anti-law and order and no law and order and carnage in the streets and drugs coming over the border and all that. You own that. And that's where it needs to work both ways. So that doesn't cost any money. That's just, to me, where is that? Because it needs to be said, it really, really needs to be said. And, it kind of all speaks.
It really should be said on a cup.
Yeah, it's the best iced tea I ever had.
I think it should be said often and early, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's the overall
a good cup of coffee.
It's the overall hypocrisy of it, though. But it kind of compares to back in NFL with the Patriots and their coach with the guy in the stands with the camera and the deflate gate and all that kind of stuff. Did he cheat? Well, apparently they did, but they got the smack on the wrist. It's a weird analogy, but he found the gray areas in the rules. Ethically, most looked at it is, unless you lived there in New England, the rest of the other cities that have football teams were like, you cheater, you slob, you this, you that, and had some few choice words to say. Let's go, Brandon. But the thing was, Republicans need to start doing their homework. And there really, really appears to be behind so far, because when you start looking at the Democrats and that, what's her name down there, the Abrams in Georgia, that Senate race was key. And to my understanding, and again, please look this up and vet it, she created some kind of a .org or one of those type of sites. I don't know if it was funded out of the $419 million or not, called Happy Faces. And it makes it sound like arts and craft classes or something like that. In the meantime, it's like, here, can you color this in and paint by numbers? And by the way, see here, this is a ballot, and this is the person. Yeah, right there, that little X. However they do it, it's just layers and layers and layers. And the last thing that you can do into that is sit at home and go, well, why bother? Why should I go vote? What you're going to have to keep voting. We tell you every week on the show, find that candidate, find that local person, and do your homework on them. You can if they don't have the campaign funds, you could just word of mouth, talk to your neighbors, talk to your people at your church, however you got to do it. But sure you vote. That part of it is to discourage people from voting. And if you don't vote, or you say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, it's going to be fixed, it's going to be rigged, they're so embedded now. No, but if that continues, I would say, Jim, going back to what you said, a year from now, this could be disastrous, really disastrous. So there's a lot of good races in play. There's, governor races all the way down to your local commissioners and council people, school boards. They're all in play, folks, and you can only control what you can control. And you go out there, you find the right people, cast your vote, and start trying to stop the mayhem in your immediate area where you live. That's a start. At least in a little town or little community where you live, you get some sane people there, and then start building from that. Go ahead, yeah. Sorry about that.
If I can play you a cautionary tale, I would say this. You're talking about getting candidates out and the lack of Republicans driving this home. Well, listen, the current presidency has been a shit show for a while. It's been a goat fuck for a while. it's not something that just happened just this last couple of months. It's been steadily getting worse. The inflation's been rising. Inflation didn't kick up. It didn't happen overnight. It's taken 9 to 10 months now for it to get to where it is. You would have thought the state of New Jersey here. We not only have the what you just mentioned for elections, the candidates for boards of eds, local towns. We not only have that, but we also have every single member of the House and the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly are up for reelection this year, along with the governor. And yet, if you look down at the ballots, you're going to see a number of blanks where there are Republicans, where there would have been Republicans who, and many of these candidates are not only running, they're running against candidates who are not strong candidates. And they're not strong because no one wanted to get behind somebody and push a strong candidate forward. That I think is a cautionary tale for us because we knew that Biden was going to have his errors and that things were not looking great. Gas prices were going up. This is over the summer. Gas prices going up, inflation going up, the the issue with the COVID on the horizon, and yet we still had empty backing from a number of people in the state, but also lack of Republican willpower on that level. There's strong candidates. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm saying that we have a slate of candidates that run and have control of their districts, but then we have a bunch of others where we have holes in the bluer areas that we should be pushing a candidate forward because, as you said at the top of the show, this is, or maybe you said this off camera, but this is the best time for that thing to roll over, and
well,
a lot of people are not taking advantage of it.
Here's where it doesn't become a level playing field. And again, folks, vote. Don't let this discourage you. If there's 10 seats up and there's only 5 good candidates on there, and vote for the 5 good ones. Just make sure your local policy for your county, there's been back and forth that you have to fill in every box or it won't accept it. There was a lot of that going on. But just, getting back to the $419 million, a lot of that money, from what I understand, allegedly made its way down into the local communities where, it used to be years ago, it was civic duty. People would volunteer to be a judge of elections, to work the polls, to go campaign door to door. And there was really no money exchange. It was to maintain civility and have good leadership. And we can't even get people to work in a grocery store now or the docks or, there's labor shortage all over the place. But that $419 million, apparently, that money trickled down into the hands of where that money was used to fund poll workers and make it pretty reasonable, to go out there and stand or become a judge of election. And they embedded a lot of people. So it's something that needs to be looked at. And if they're going to do any kind of election reform, this is part of it. The integrity of the systems and all that. Yes, there's an issue there, but this probably is even bigger because if you're, Jane, the candidate, and you want to run for a local office somewhere or even a higher office for governor, and you do get some donors, grassroots donations coming in, and maybe you do get a whale who turns around and gives you a few extra bucks that you didn't expect. Now trying to get that money, to get your infrastructure made, you burn through a lot of it. And then trying to get people to go out there and cover thousands and thousands of houses to drop your literature off or get you introduced. It's very tough to do that. There's no skin in the game for those people. They might really, really like you, but to get them out there to go walk 3 or 4 miles, but if you can take some of this money, it trickles down for the, organizations like the Center for Technology and Civic Life or the Center for Election Innovation, those type of things. it's just not a fair playing field. And there's something right there that conservative leadership should be, again, on the floor of Congress. And if they do a good enough, guess what? If they do a good enough job making their point on the floor of Congress, a lot of TV shows, it's not going to be an interview. It's going to be so-and-so did this on the congressional floor. And they should be banging the table and demanding better, for the people. And it's time. I don't know. We say this every show, what next? But folks, that's why this show is called The Cycle of Mayhem. That's where the name came from. Because if you look at everything we went over with you tonight, you look at everything we went over with you in the past shows, it's one just cycle of mayhem and nuttier and over. And we need to stop the cycle of mayhem. If that means our show don't exist anymore because it's all stopped, I think we'll take that, won't we, Jim?
You got it. And speaking of which, AJ, we are at 46 minutes, coming up on 47 minutes. I know you had a time limit on this show, so just want to make you aware of that.
Well, the whole goal is it's not even about the time. It's about giving you everything without any fluff, without any commercials, without any BS or nonsense. Just, one of the goals with this show is to keep throwing the information out there, steering you in the right direction. And, we both want to thank you guys for tuning in and viewing. Remember, you can catch us every Wednesday night, here on Ballistic Patriot, Cycle of Mayhem, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. sharp. And don't forget to check out the Brotherhood of Liberty every Sunday night. As we always say, we're not here to be some kind of viral, what do they call it, Jim? I'm not a tech guy, folks. But
I don't know what you're aiming.
We're not trying to go viral here and get 1,000,001 hits to be nice, because it's all about getting the message out. That's what we're doing this for, cutting off the fat, like we say, and steering you in the right direction. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope to see you guys next week, and spread the word about the show, spread the word about the message, and share it with people. Get them kind of like we do here, is steer them in the direction and welcome them if they have that little time before they go to sleep tonight to take a look and snoop around at some things. But with that being said, folks, as we always say, and I always say, as tough as it is, as high as your patience, your patience get tested, be kind, be friendly, be nice. Don't take and please, please, please make sure you vote, and make sure you don't vote for the wrong person. That's all I have, Jim.
Exactly. All right, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you on our next show. Take care.
God bless.